You're listening to The Voice of Reason with Mark Reed and Ted Durden, only on LA Talk Radio.
Good evening, everyone. I am Ted Durden, a Southern Democrat.
And I'm Mark Reed, a West Coast Republican.
And together, we are the Voice of Reason. For those of you tuning in for the first time, and I say this every week, this podcast is a politically driven program where we believe the civil discourse is the order of the day, where Mark and I believe there are more things that unite us than there are things that divide us. And having said that, throwing it over to Mark.
Absolutely. A breaking news story that happened today, and that is Patrick Byron, I think is his Burns is his name, and the CEO of OverStock had to step down today because he revealed that his relationship with a Russian and also his participation in some of the deep state issues with the FBI to undermine and sabotage both Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton, Ted Cruz, and Marco Rubio. And this is a case that's going to, I think, blow things wide open.
It probably will.
I think so. But I had to break it because it's breaking news today. He's done several interviews on his stepping down as the CEO of OverStock. And so everybody watched the news on this one. I think some revelations are going to come about. But I honestly believe that that Attorney General Barr's special investigator looking into the origins of the FISA warrants and the dossier,
yes, right.
I think this guy may have a little dirtier hands than what he's admitting to. And as a 56-year-old billionaire with Overstock, looking at possible maybe some really deep legal matters involved.
Very possible. And those of you who have never heard of Overstock, it's an online company where you can buy products, a variety of products, at a significant discount. And if I had to characterize Byrne, I would probably characterize him maybe along the lines of Elon Musk, in the sense that he's extremely eccentric. And I know that when he put out his statement, it was rather rambling. It left a lot of his investors confused. The upside is the stock went up 18% before it finally settled down at a 10% gain.
Well, he has his hands in a lot of things, and one of the interesting ones, this is why this case is going to be extremely interesting as it unfolds. He revealed that he has 13 or so companies with Bitcoin. Now, Bitcoin has been with the blockchain programs of manipulating money throughout the world. I think this is where it's really going to start coming out, is how much money has been shifted around throughout the world that the banking industry has never seen. They don't track. They have no idea where it's going. Like I said, I think there's a multitude of layers, but that was just a breaking news story. Right. We're not going to really touch on that heavily tonight. We're going to go into a lot of different subject matters.
Oh, yeah.
And I have, we're going to spend a couple minutes on each one.
Right.
And so, Ted, we have our list. You have your list there. Let's rock and roll here.
Okay. The first one that I want to talk about, because a lot of things, of course, are always going on in the news, is the whole public charge. What the Trump administration is finally doing. And what the public charge is about, for those of you who don't know, what that is when you have an illegal immigrant that comes to this country, they're able to get social benefits. They can get welfare, they can get aid for dependent children, they can get health care. There's all sorts of social benefits that they can participate in.
Does that include a silver blanket?
Well, they get that when they first get here. That's the welcoming gift.
Right, yeah, to keep them warm. We got to keep them warm. We have to be humanitarians here. You know that, right?
They got to wait a week for a toothpaste and a toothbrush and a bar of soap. But the public charge is a very interesting thing because originally, with immigrants coming to America, you had to have a sponsor.
Sure.
You had to have a job. You weren't supposed to be a burden on society.
Correct.
Or welfare programs.
And that's the key point.
Because our welfare programs are really established for U.S. citizens. Now, remember, it's taxpayers' money.
Right, exactly.
Now, we don't mind helping somebody out in an emergent situation. This is why our hospitals will take in any illegal immigrants and fix them up and send them back out, and not really charge them for anything because you can't.
Right.
There's certain things that we do as a society that is extremely compassionate. But what's happened is because the welfare programs, even our income tax, structure, is subject to criminality and how would you say fraudulent actions of illegal immigrants. And when we talk about it, and I know you and I, Ted, when we talk about illegal immigrants, we're not specifically looking at Southern.
No, we're not. This is across the board. This is across the board. No, this is across the board.
Anybody who comes here, because 60% of illegal immigrants that are here in America are visa overstays.
Well, and not only that, another interesting statistic is that 52% of illegal immigrants, again, not just those from the southern border, 52% of the children of illegal immigrants end up on a social program. They end up on welfare. Now, what they did with public charge is they're enforcing it because part of the law, the language in the law is if you are an illegal immigrant on a public benefit program, you cannot then become a legal immigrant and remain a public charge.
Well, I read the information on that. There is actually limits on how much public welfare programs you can be on. They're looking at, I think, if you have abused the situation. It's not just a blanket. You've been on one welfare program, you can't apply. It's the inadmissibility to America as a legal immigrant. They've set limits on what you can do. They want you to go to work. They do not want you to be a burden on society as well. These are the magnets. Now, it's always said, one of the shows I talk to with is, what is the big magnet for illegal immigration? Is it economics?
That's it.
That's the core.
That's it. Even when people were interviewed at the border, they're coming to this country to get a better life.
Yeah, when
the only way that you can do that is to have a better life is economically based, pure and simple.
Yes, when Lachlan Westphal was here, we all agreed. I mean, he is a liberal. You're a Southern Democrat. I'm a Republican. We all agreed on the same thing.
Right.
The big driver is economics.
Absolutely.
Okay, we have a nice high minimum wage here, especially in California. It's going up to $15. It's a lot more than down south. We have a lot of welfare programs that they join. They were able to work under the table, get welfare programs, and so they were living way better than they were before.
Very true.
What the Trump administration is trying to do is enforce the laws that are on the books.
Yes.
And that's it. I don't think they're going to do it without compassion. I think they're going to do it with compassion. If anybody wants to call into the show and join any of the conversations and topics we're talking about, please call in at 818-570-5085 and join in on the conversation. We'd like to hear from you because these are very touchy subjects. We know everybody doesn't like, child separation, and that's the next subject we'll go right into is the Flores Act. Correct. And President Trump and this administration is to go ahead and, how would you say, exercise one of the clauses within the Flores Act, and that is keeping the children and the parents together. Right. That's why he wants to scrap it and say, look, this is another magnet. If you allow, anybody to come into America with a child, whether it's theirs or not, but you can't prove it. You can't do spontaneous DNA testing.
Right.
Okay, so the coyotes and all the drug smugglers have all figured it out. They're renting kids. They say 33% of the children don't belong. This is what they're
with the adults that they're with.
Absolutely. They're with. So he is saying, President Trump and his administration and the CDC, not CDC, ICE, not ICE, but Immigration Border. It's Homeland Security. Homeland Security.
All right.
Okay, is saying we need to hold them. Longer to determine if they are or not. So they're going to start developing the facilities to do that.
Well, let's look at this thing in its totality. Under the Flores settlement, the Flores Act, it was agreed that children of illegal immigrants that were brought to this country could not be detained longer than 20 days. So what happened and what the coyotes figured out, and other illegal immigrants, what they figured out is, send a minor child with you. Take a minor child with you. So what the United States was doing is, after the 20-day period was expired, they were releasing the families.
Exactly.
That's what they were doing, just releasing them into the United States.
Some of those children, the 33 that didn't belong to those parents, the claimed parents, were recycled back in. They were brought back across the border because you don't get checked.
No.
You get brought back across the border. The coyote picks them up again, rents them to another person. Go in there. So these children are being used by financial gain.
Right.
And this is all that has been done. And it's the same thing going back to the original laws, the Flores law and the detention back in Clinton's days. It's because they wanted to address the human trafficking and the sex slave trade. That's what they were addressing by the separation of, because they had no idea if these particular children were the children of these adults.
Right, and even from a statistic perspective, well, give me 1 second before I even get into that. and so you have the children that are coming over with the adults, whether they are there are children. After the 20 days, the parents are released into it. So what Trump did, and everybody got upset about, was he was taking the kids and shipping them off all across the United States, where there was no it wasn't. There was no way to really track them, so there was no way for them to really unite them with their family. So I look at it like this: you can't have it both ways. You can't say, okay, well, don't take the children away from their parents, but at the same time, you just can't let the parents and the child just go set them free into the United States. So what they're talking about doing now is, okay, fine. In an effort to close that loophole and keep families together, then the kids will simply stay with the parents, no matter where they're at, jail, fencing, wherever, they will continue to stay with their parents. Now, you may not like the way that they're being housed. You may not like that. But if the goal is to keep the families together, then don't complain about how it's done, as long as it is done in a humane fashion. Because here's what has happened as a consequence of that, okay? Family units, and we're going to call them that, whether they're, an actual parent and a child or just an adult and child, increased in 2013 from 14,851 to 432,838 in 2017. In the last 3 months alone, there have been 184,000 family units. So as you can see, once they figured out, and it's the only way I can put it, once they figured out how to game the system.
Bush to Obama to President Trump.
Absolutely. Once they figured out how to game the system, then that's what they've done. That's what they've done. So something has to be done, and this is the only measure they could come up with.
And they want to blame the president all the time. Barack Obama tried to do something about it.
Right.
He couldn't do it. He did the Dreamers Act, which was unconstitutional, but he wanted to get something done. Congress is at the fault of all of this.
Oh, absolutely.
Congress needs to get, I've said this every single time when we talk about this, Congress needs to get off their butts, do their jobs. And I'm not talking about Democrats. I'm not talking about Republicans. I'm talking about Congress.
Right.
Okay, both sides of the aisle.
Regardless of the party affiliation.
They've been screwing this up for 40 years now. And they're the ones at the wheelhouse. They're the ones who can change the laws. They're the ones who can allocate the money for better housing facilities. They don't have to do the paid facilities at this point, but because they've done nothing, our border has been overrun.
Absolutely.
Because the coyotes and the drug dealers and everybody else has figured out how to massively profit off of human trafficking.
And again, we want to make it clear, this is immigration, period. Regardless of what your race is, whether you're coming from Japan, China, Jamaica, Africa, it doesn't matter.
Yes.
It's across the board. It's across the board. Now, I know that this particular administration has made the southern border the face of illegal immigration. That's all well and good.
Well,
it gets people's dander up, and we do have a huge problem at the southern border because that's where the largest influx comes from at this point.
Remember, Ted, at the southern border, they've identified over 150 different countries of immigrants coming in.
That's great. Okay, we need to pay some bills right now.
Yes.
So we're going to go to a commercial break, and we'll be right back.
You're listening to The Voice of Reason with Ted Durden and Mark Reed on LATalkRadio.com. The Voice of Reason is brought to you by TurchinLaw.com. 818-230-3110. If you need any legal advice regarding workers' compensation, employment, or labor law, check out TurchinLaw.com. 818-230-3110. The Voice of Reason is also brought to you by A1 Law. If you need the #1 computer management system, it's only $1 a day, money back guaranteed. A1 Law. And now the the Voice of Reason is also brought to you by Honda. And now back to Ted Durden and Mark Reed on the Voice of Reason.
We have one more advertisement there, Steve, that has just come on board sponsoring the Voice of Reason.
Oh, is it a video or an audio?
It's a video, and
okay.
Sam will play it right after this, but it's with Levin and Albania, trial lawyers that do the same thing. I have personally used them, so I vouch for them. Sam, if you can play the ad, please. Hi, I want to welcome Rusty Levin and Harry Nabanian, both trial lawyers for workman comp cases. If you're injured on the job, don't hesitate. Contact an attorney. I did when I was wounded or injured on my job, and I thought I would trust my employer, and it didn't work out quite well, so I found Rusty Levin. Handled my case like a professional, worked out way better than any other lawyer that I talked to would have worked out. So Rusty, tell us a little bit about your company of Levin and Nabanian Trial Lawyers.
So at our firm, at Levin Albania Trial Lawyers, we handle all matters of workers' compensation, personal injury, and employment disputes, wrongful termination matters, and things like that. We were able to help Mr. Reed out with his workers' compensation case. Unfortunately, workers' compensation injury can be very stressful, intense situation. And at Levin Albanian, we try to get you the most benefit we can of the law, while also easing the stress and anxiety that comes along with that situation, and getting you back on your feet. My partner, Mr. Albandian, he handles the personal injury sides, and I'll let him take it from there.
And just like all injured employees out there, anybody else who gets injured as a result of somebody else's negligence has rights, and the rights that they need to protect immediately. And they should do that by calling Levin and Albanian Trial Lawyers and letting us help ease that tension off of you and get you the result you deserve, while also making sure that you get better in the progress. So we're here for you, folks.
Levin and Nabanian Trial Lawyers is the best company for you to get a hold of when you're injured or have a personal injury. So give them a call at
213-232-4848, 213-232-4848. Thank you.
And let them handle the stress for you while you recover at home. Thank you again. Bye-bye.
Okay, just before the break, Mark, I apologize for cutting you off. So go ahead with what you were saying about 150.
Well, there's 150 different countries that are recognized of individuals being smuggled across our southern border. So notoriously, everybody sits there and looks at it as a brown skin issue. It's an immigration issue.
Correct.
And the immigration issue, Congress has full control of fixing the laws.
Right.
And Congress needs to get off their butt, especially the one that sits there and talks about it constantly here in the 30th District, my past opponent. Right. And he needs to get up off his behind and stop using the immigrants as his pawn card in order to be reelected. So that's all I'm going to say on that, because like I said, it isn't. It's not a Republican or a Democrat thing.
No.
This is a United States issue.
It's an American problem.
It's an American problem,
right.
But it's the American ideals of bringing in immigrants. We thrive on new blood coming to America.
Yes, we do, but at the same time, and again, if I offend anybody, I apologize. The new blood that comes in has to be contributory.
Absolutely.
You can't come in and be a burden on our system. Now, again, you come here, you get some public benefit, get off the dole.
Yep.
Get off the dole. Become a contributing member of the American society. I'll always support that 100%. But come here and just stand on the dole, dropping babies like biscuits. I'm sorry. No.
Well, this is when ICE did the, and I forget what state it was in, they did the ICE raid on the chicken factory, manufacturing factory, somewhere down south.
Right.
The press didn't really cover it the way they should have, because, the community was extremely happy. And the reason why is because it opened up 150 jobs for legal residents of that community.
I'm going to talk about that.
Go ahead, real quick.
Okay, I got to jump in on that. Okay.
Right.
I've said this on the show before. Okay. Illegal immigration, especially from the southern border, impacts blacks more than any other race. Because when immigrants from the southern border come to this country, they look to blend in. So if you're a brown skin, you're going to look to blend in with other brown skin black folk. That's where you go. You go to the inner city. That's where you blend in at. So we are the ones, blacks, African Americans, we are the ones that suffer the greatest for it. So because there was a gentleman.
Same thing with the minimum wage. We've talked about that
absolutely.
as well.
We're the
going to
ones
get a
yeah.
little bit into
Right.
that about the Kentucky
Right.
governor.
Oh, yeah,
and,
yeah.
and
We're going
his
to talk about
proposals
that.
to get a little further into it,
which I like. But we're the ones that suffer the most from it, because when those immigrants were picked up, those jobs were mostly filled by blacks. They were mostly filled because there was a gentleman that I personally know had been trying to get at that factory for the longest time. And they kept telling him they're not hiring anybody, but every time he turned around, there was an illegal immigrant or an immigrant that was being hired. So after they all got picked up, guess what? He got hired. So again,
that drives the wages down, because they're not paying them the going wage.
Of course.
I mean, so it hurts everybody all the way around. So the community was actually happy, because there was a line going around the corner for those jobs.
Oh, absolutely.
And they sat there and praised the rate. They were
Right.
like, and it's not that they hate immigrants.
No.
It's not that they hate illegals.
No.
It is and everybody says it's a nationalist issue. No, it's an American first issue. You're a citizen of the United States. You should be first in line.
Well,
To get welfare programs, to get free schooling, to get free housing. So many people have said, look, an immigrant can come here and get free housing faster than I can.
Oh, absolutely.
Person that's hard on their luck. And it's like, wait a minute, this isn't right. Something's wrong with this one.
No, absolutely.
They can get into college before a middle-class student can get into college.
It's not even about getting into college. They can actually get scholarships through minority scholarship programs.
Yes.
They can. And to me, that's a travesty. It just is. And we've said this on the show before. And I get the placard that's on the Statue of Liberty at Ellis Island. But I go back to what I said in one of our prior podcasts. That does not mean that American citizens should not get first crack, because we're the ones that were here. We're the ones that suffered through the Depression, through slavery, through all the ills and the ups and downs that this country has been through, and we should get first crack.
Well,
should.
That creates American pride.
Absolutely.
It creates ownership of this country. And this is one of the things the Philadelphian had talked about, and that is what is the main downfall or destruction of any empire, and it's the moral fiber of the country diminishes. Meaning, I'm not getting religious. It's not the moral fiber of religion.
Right.
It's the moral fiber of, why does this country exist? You talk about exceptionalism. You talk about, America first. You talk about this. It's the fact that we are the greatest nation on the face of the earth.
Yeah,
If we are the greatest nation on the face of the earth, then our people should get first crack at things.
Absolutely.
Our veterans should be held up on a pedestal and get first crack at everything pertaining to mental health care. Anybody who's down on their luck in America should get first crack at stuff. And then we bring in immigrants based on the necessities of this nation.
Absolutely.
And like you said, whether they can contribute or not to the economy, that's merit-based immigration. Every other country has it.
Yeah.
On that note, we want to go to another, because we can talk about this on a whole show. There's no questions about it. So we wanted to talk about, Ted brought this up earlier, and that is Congress's desire to fault and or punish Israel for banning Representative Tlaib and Representative Omar from coming to Israel. And it's not really coming to Israel. This is where the press once again fails. I have their whole itinerary right here on my phone. They had no desire to go to Israel. They weren't going to meet any of the representatives of Israel. Their itinerary was to go to Pakistan and organize the BDS movement. And you want to say something on that really quick, and then I'm going to read their itinerary, and it's amazing because you don't hear about it.
And that's fine. Like I said, I'm a Southern Democrat. They don't let you leave the South.
Everybody keeps telling me you sound like a Republican that's listening to the show.
You know what? Stop cussing at me. Stop cussing at me. Anyway. Anyway,
ancestors are rolling over now.
Hey. Like I said, I'm a conservative Democrat. I am party loyal, but not policy faithful. I'm not. So anyway, having said
that's a good statement.
Yeah. So having said that, you can borrow it anytime you feel like.
I love it. That really describes me.
Yeah,
I was raised in a military family that were Republican. I registered Republican. Okay, I think every policy needs to carry its own water.
Absolutely.
Period. And if it's a crappy piece of policy, it's got holes leaking all the way
I
down
don't
the
care
street.
who it comes
I
from.
don't care where it comes from. I ain't voting for it. And I've proven that on every board of directors that I've been on, where the other side, the opposing side, says, "Mark, you got to vote for this." So, why? Tell me, give me the reason. Pitch it. Why?
Did you either one of you hear about Donald Trump's recent pitch around the veterans?
Yes.
The veterans who are permanently and totally disabled. He wants all of their student debt, every cent, wiped out. But
Kudos.
not partially disabled, but permanently disabled. He
Right,
wants
yeah.
all the student debt wiped out.
Right, and I saw that, and kudos to him. Kudos to him.
Yes.
Now,
We're going to get back to Congress's desire
Right.
to harass Israel. And it's not
Okay.
just Congress, because the ruling party in Congress right now is
Well, in the House is
the
Democrats.
And
it's
it's
the
coming from the
Democrat, and it is
Democrat
coming
side.
from
It's
them.
not coming from the
So-
Republican side.
So as we said,
because the how would you say, there's only two Jewish Republicans. Did you know that?
Only two?
Only two.
Really?
The majority of representatives that are Jewish are on the Democrat side. So you have to ask.
Now that's very
now
true.
you got to
Now that's
ask a
very true.
simple question.
That's very true.
Why isn't there a massive upheaval about this? Why isn't there a massive upheaval about what Bernie Sanders is proposing? We should be using the money that we give to Israel as a leverage to get them to do what we want and stop the racism that's going on in Israel. Why isn't there a massive outcry?
I can't answer that.
That's one of those policy things you're not standing on.
I can't know, and I think it's ridiculous. Look, being from the South, like I said, you can't leave the South unless you have a bunch of Southernism, Southern sayings. And all Omar and Tlaib were going to do, they were going to Israel to just stir up the pot. They're just stirring up the beans. That's all they're trying to do. Okay, because like you said, the BDS, which is boycott, disinvest, and sanction. That's what it stands for.
Well, wait a minute. Mark just said they weren't going to Israel; they were going to Pakistan.
Yeah.
Well, no, but what I'm saying is, but they were. No,
Were
they
they going to Israel, or were they not going to Israel?
Pakistan is not recognized as a state.
Right, but they were still.
It is part of Israel. They had no intent. I'm going to read this to you real fast.
Well, no.
I just want to know if they were going to Israel or not going.
You have to land in Israel.
Right, they
So
had
your
to go.
passport has to be in Israel. That's where you're landing. Then you're going to go to the West Bank.
Right.
Now I understand.
Or the
so
Gaza
you have to go,
Strip.
right, so they have to
Yes.
go to Israel in order to get to Pakistan.
Right.
But
Not
here's
Pakistan. Palestine.
Palestine. Okay, Palestine.
You're throwing me
My
off
bad,
here. Wait
my
a
bad.
second.
My bad.
Wrong region.
My bad.
Did I say Pakistan?
You did,
you
Mark.
did.
I
You-
didn't know. Oh,
you did.
sorry. I'm
Mark,
sorry.
believe it or not, you threw yourself
I
off,
got
sir.
geographically
Or,
really mixed up.
or should I say you threw yourself off,
Palestine, not
boss.
Pakistan. Their intentions was to go to Palestine and organize the BDS movement. They were going to meet with Hamas, and they were going to meet with.
But Mr. Reed, isn't it true there is no more Palestine? When Israel was granted its stateship at the end of World War II, Palestine was essentially eliminated. Or am I
that is-
totally
never
mistaken?
been to Palestine, and there's a big argument about
correct.
whether or not there's really
that's-
Palestinians.
Well,
that's
as
it was called Palestine before the end of World War II.
Correct. Correct. And that's what the big fight is, and what the big push is in the House is trying to get them a homeland, and that's been the big push through the U.S. government, depending on who's in charge for the last 15, 20 years?
Yes.
Something like that.
Yes.
But anyway, my take on this is very simple. Okay, once again, and I'm going to go back to a tweet that Donald Trump put out. The Democrats are walking me in to the 2020 White House. That's what they're doing. Now, the United States has been one of Israel's staunchest allies. We have been. There's a kinship. There's a brotherhood there. And before I get any further into it, we need to take some time and pay some bills. And then we'll be right back.
You're listening to Ted Durden and Mark Reed on The Voice of Reason on latalkradio.com. Voice of Reason is brought to you by churchandlaw.com, 818-230-3110. If you need any legal advice regarding workers' compensation, employment, or labor law, check out churchandlaw.com, 818-230-3110. Voice of Reason is also brought to you by A1 Law, #1 computer management system, 818-357-46 4120 for your no-strings-attached money-back guarantee, $1 a day. A1 Law, and last but not least, the Voice of Reason is brought to you by Honda. And now back to Ted Durden and Mark Reed on the Voice of Reason.
And again, we welcome your comments. You don't have to agree. It's all about civil discourse. So please feel free to call in at area code 818-570-5085. Now, back to what I was saying is, again, they were going there to just start trouble. That's what they were going to do. I can imagine the United States, if they had foreknowledge of any diplomat that was coming to this country to sow the seeds of dissension, would be welcome here. I can imagine that. So why would...
Well, we have rejected individuals that have come here that have been bad for America.
No, and I'm aware of that. But what I'm saying is, but by the very same token, why can you get mad at Israel for doing the same thing that we've done?
You shouldn't. Now,
No.
I'm going to read this to you.
Okay, go ahead.
And you
Go ahead.
tell me, because it's going to take a minute, so bear with me. On
All
August
right.
5th, 41 freshman congressmen, Democrats, landed in Israel under the leadership of House Majority Speaker Steny Hoyer. Tlaib and Omar said no to joining them. August 8th, Tlaib and Omar sent invitations to their fellow BDS supporter colleagues for their August 18th, 22nd trip to Palestine. The agenda is attached. I'm going to read the direct agenda. That's what was approved. Despite being told they do not have congressional approval for it, the agenda shows no meetings with Israeli officials and no cohesion efforts. On August 15th, Omar and Tlaib's trip is declined, federally funded by your tax dollars, and is revealed the organizers of this trip's Miftah have terrorist ties. Okay, on August 16th, the Israeli government allowed Tlaib to enter into Israel to visit her sick grandmother. Tlaib requested attachment, provided she would not propagate boycotting efforts against Israel. I stand with Israel's government 100% in the rejection. My
Absolutely.
past opponent has come out and all up in heavel, saying that they should have been allowed to go. Now, this is their itinerary that was given to the State Department. At 12:40 p.m., depart Washington, D.C. to Tel Aviv. Okay, landing at 9:45 a.m. to arrive in Tel Aviv. Check-in at 11 o'clock, 1500 to 1600. Welcome and working lunch with U.S. Embassy country team. Objective, congressional, understand the country political dynamics and security situation. 1630 to 1730, military time. Meeting with representatives from ANERA, Mercy, I'm having a hard time reading, Mercy Corp, and UNRWA to discuss the impact of funding cuts on humanitarian relief and development projects. Objective, congressional persons to understand impact of congressional and State Department aid cuts on humanitarian assistance and development projects. Tour of youth center and meeting with young people from Jerusalem and in Gaza to discuss academic and employment-related challenges. Objective, congresspersons understand the economic environment of how U.S. assistance may be targeted to facilitate youth employment in the future. Downtime, working dinner with American expat community to discuss living and investing in the West Bank and Gaza. Congressional objective, congressional persons to understand American citizens and private sector challenges to assist development in Palestine economy. Their whole desire wasn't anything to do with Israel. This is all documentation on the federal government. Mm-hmm. So when Bibi Netanyahu, the prime minister there, he didn't know what their objective was. It was all approved through the State Departments. Once he found out what their true objective was, that's when he said, no, we're not doing this. Also, when he found out who was funding because the United States government said they're not going to fund the trip.
Right.
MIFTIF decided to fund it, and they're to have ties to terrorist organizations. So when you look at these things, this is to me, it's treason. It's treason to the United States, taking terrorist money to go to Israel. It's actually trying to undermine one of our allies as well. It's treasonous is probably pretty
Yeah,
rough.
that
It's
is,
pretty
yeah,
tough.
yeah. I wouldn't
you know.
call it treasonous, no.
But
no.
but it,
you might want to
we'll call it
label
bad,
it.
we'll call it bad form.
Yeah, or
Okay?
unpatriotic. You may say
Unpatriotic,
that.
bad
That's
form.
fine. That's
Being
fine.
a little Trumpy in there.
Yeah, a little bit.
A little bit.
Scotch,
A little
yeah,
Trumpy
a little
in there.
bit.
Unpatriotic of what?
Well,
The United States?
Well, yeah, of our relationship that we have with Israel, trying to engage in behavior in a manner
How about
that
let's-
attempts to undermine that relationship that has been staunch and steadfast for so many years.
How about as a
That's how I look
congressional?
at it.
How about as a congressional individual representing the United States interest, it undermined the State Department's relationship building with Israel by going there to create a relationship that undermines Israel. This
So
is
does
not
that
what our
mean-
Congress people are supposed to be doing.
Does that mean President Trump is then an unnamed conspirator in the undermining of the United States? Because Netanyahu didn't do anything until Trump issued his tweet, if I'm not mistaken.
No, Netanyahu was already being apprised of the situation because he didn't know exactly what was going on. This was all being handled by the State Departments. I don't think Netanyahu would be strong-armed by President Trump or the United States to do anything that he didn't want to do.
Well,
This
I wouldn't say strong arm. I wouldn't say that, but I can certainly say that he would have been influenced. And Trump said what he said. I'm not mad at him for saying it. Okay, because all he did was make a very good point. Because everybody knows that Netanyahu, at the end of the day, the last thing that he wants to be seen is as a weak leader. He does not.
Absolutely
And
not.
especially in the eyes of another leader, and especially in the eyes of any United States administration. I think that's fair to say.
I think that's absolutely fair to say. I think there's a lot of things that are working under the radar that most of us don't know what's going on.
Right.
And so when these leaders talk to one another, they have the interest of their nations. Bibi Netanyahu has the interest of Israel.
Of course.
Period.
Of course.
President Trump has the interest, whether you agree with it or not. Yeah, I think he has the interest of America at heart. He's a little bodacious, and I've said this before in his comments and his tweets, and we can all argue about his personality,
Lord knows
which
he's
I
not
disagree with.
politically
He's
correct by
not
any
politically
stretch.
correct by
No.
any charge. I mean, coming out as I'm the chosen one. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
we can get
Yeah.
past all of
Yeah,
that
yeah.
stuff.
And I have to say something to that. I got to say something to that.
that
And I hope
started it.
and I hope if I read it right, and please correct me if I didn't. He said that the Jews saw him as a second coming of Christ, which I found funny because, again, correct me if I'm wrong, Jews don't believe in Christ as a
they
general
don't.
rule. Now,
No.
there's a splinter group that call themselves Jews for Jesus, but as a general rule, Jews don't believe in Jesus.
They don't believe that Jesus was
The Son of God.
right, or
Well, the
was
Son of God.
or
He's a prophet.
was reborn or
Right.
rised again.
Right.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
The truth of the matter, there's a lot of organizations that say that Donald Trump was the chosen one for the presidency of the United States, the second coming. You can believe whatever you want to believe. I always say that God never chooses the right job for you, but He'll always choose the right person for the right job.
And I say a duck-billed platypus is proof positive that God had a sense of humor.
That's
And
right.
I'd like to know if Melania has checked under the skin to see if there's a 666 there.
That's a little mean.
I am a little mean. Thank you.
On
It's funny,
that
though.
mean spike. Well, I'm glad to see you laughing. Having a
Well,
good
it was humorous.
I understand that. Let's go ahead and move on from there to our next topic because there's quite a few of them. San Francisco has really
oh my
kind of
God.
gone off the deep end, and this is where California, in general,
my
has
God.
gone off the deep end. Look, in my mind, a criminal is a criminal, a felon, a misdemeanor is a felon, a misdemeanor. Look, I agree that we have to have some judicial reform, and we have to have criminal reform. We have to have prison reforms to give individuals an opportunity to come out of jail after they've served their time to be able to join the workforce and become a productive individual within society. I agree with that 1,000%. But this whole renaming classification here, they're rebranding as judicial involved persons. Now, as Thomas Jefferson said, why do you use two words when you can use one?
Absolutely.
It's a criminal.
Absolutely.
It's a felon.
Absolutely.
Who cares?
And they're worried about
How they feel.
Yeah, there. I
like-
don't want to hurt the
offend them.
thug's feelings.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want to hurt that murderer's feelings. I don't want to hurt that drug abuser's feeling. So instead of calling him a drug abuser,
He had a bad childhood.
instead of
Ted,
calling him
you
a
have heart. Come on.
drug addict, yeah, I had RLI. Anyway, okay, don't even get me started. Okay, let's call them. They have a history of substance use, not even abuse.
Not abuse.
Just
Use.
substance use. And what did they say? A criminal is now going to be called a
justice involved
involved person.
What the hell is that?
What the fork? What? What? Okay.
That's what I say.
It's like-
This is why California, even the Southern Democrats,
Oh
I'm
my
sure,
God.
this is why California is kind of a laughing stock throughout the United States. I travel quite a bit, and I go to other states. It's actually embarrassing to say I'm from California. They laugh.
Well, no, I'm not going to be embarrassed about it. I mean, I take pride in the fact I was born in North Carolina. That's where I'm originally from. I made my home in California.
You got good roots.
I
Okay.
love SoCal.
You're here visiting.
But shut up. But anyway. Anyway.
You're just visiting. I was born in this godforsaken hellhole now we call California. It's no longer the golden bear. This is the brown bear. It's full of San Francisco poop and pee and urine and needles and everything else under the sun. I mean, they're so off the rocker with this one. It's just like I listened to Newt Gingrich once. He said, this is how off the rocker they are. You can get fined. You can get a ticket for $350 for your dog taking a crap on the street.
Oh, Jesus
Right?
Christ,
But
right.
humans can take a crap on the street all day long and not be fined. Okay? So you have dog walkers now running around, okay? And it's tell the cop, that's not my dog's crap, that's mine.
Get out of here.
Yeah.
Get out of here.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God.
This is how insane.
Oh, my God.
This
Oh,
is
my
how
God.
insane
and
policies are in California. It's like, give me a break.
And a real quick joke. Okay. So let's say some let's just say some alien intelligence comes to this country. We'll just say San Francisco. That's what we're talking about. And they see a human scooping up the dog's crap. Who do you think they're gonna talk to? They're gonna talk to the dog. How long did it take you to train him? That's what they're gonna ask. But again, San Francisco,
California insanity.
they have just gone off the rocker. If you're a juvenile delinquent, what do they call the juvenile delinquent? They call him a young person with justice system involvement. It's like, come on, you guys. Okay,
on that note of
Please.
how would you say of hysterical laughter of what our politicians
idiocracy?
do.
Idiocracy? How about that?
California.
How about euphemisms?
Yes.
There you go.
I wanted to touch real quick before we pay our bills and go on the next break here in 2 minutes is I'm really happy about this. And President Trump, finally nominated the first Marine black woman for Brigadier General.
Right, yeah.
I mean, they go off and they say he's a racist, he's a this and he's a that. And, actions to me always speak louder than words. And a lot of his actions can be misconstrued and pushed off as being racist.
Correct.
But, he has pushed women's, how would you say, advancement constantly. He might be a womanizer. He's a very aggressive guy.
Misogynist, whatever. Right.
We all are a little bit. Okay, I'm pretty well tamed. I'm 42 years of marriage.
I was going to say, Mark, you consider yourself a womanizer?
No, not anymore.
Oh, I must have misunderstood. Sorry, boss.
You missed that portion of my life. I've been married for 42 years. I'm pretty well neutered and trained. Okay, but the fact of the matter is I take my hat off to this Brigadier General nominee. And if you give me a half a second, I will get her name real fast because it to me it's a great moment in Marine history.
Right, and here's the only thing that I want to say, okay, But before we get into that, let's go ahead and just pay some bills real quick.
I'm not gonna
and
do this
then
real fast.
No.
and
Let's do this now. Let's go ahead. Go ahead. Let's pay the bill.
All right, we're going to pay the bills. We're going to run the ads with Honda and Rusty Levin and Navanya.
Go ahead.
Oh, that sounds great. You're listening to Ted Durden and Mark Reed on The Voice of Reason. The Voice of Reason is brought to you by TurchinLaw.com, 818-230-3110. If you need any workers' compensation, employment, labor law advice, check out TurchinLaw.com, 818-230-3110. The Voice of Reason is also brought to you by A1 Law, 818-357-4120 for your no-strings-attached money-back guarantee, $1 a day. It sounds like we now have a commercial from Honda and then another commercial from Mark. What is the name?
Levin and Navanya, trial lawyers.
And then we will be back for the last segment on The Voice of Reason. Ronan, time for the Honda commercial.
The power of dreams. I am the front man who drives. My power keeps me ahead in the front line. My reputation gets me on the front page. Is how I drive superiority. By being in the front row.
Hi, I want to welcome Rusty Levin and Harry Nabanian, both trial lawyers for workman comp cases. If you're injured on the job, don't hesitate. Contact an attorney. I did when I was wounded or injured on my job, and I thought I would trust my employer, and it didn't work out quite well. So I found Rusty Levin, handled my case like a professional, worked out way better than any other lawyer that I talked to would have worked out. So Rusty, tell us a little bit about your company of Levin and Nabanian trial lawyers.
So at our firm at Levin Albaniel Trial Lawyers, we handle all matters of workers' compensation, personal injury, and employment disputes, wrongful termination matters, and things like that. We were able to help Mr. Reed out with his workers' compensation case. Unfortunately, workers' compensation injury can be very stressful, intense situation. And at Levin Albanian, we try to get you the most benefit we can of the law, while also easing the stress and anxiety that comes along with that situation, and getting you back on your feet. My partner, Mr. Albanian, he handles the personal injury sides, and I'll let him take it from there.
And just like all injured employees out there, anybody else who gets injured as a result of somebody else's negligence has rights, and the rights that they need to protect immediately. And they should do that by calling Levin and Albanian trial lawyers and letting us help ease that tension off of you and get you the result you deserve, while also making sure that you get better in the progress. So we're here for you, folks.
Levin and Nabanian Trial Lawyers is the best company for you to get a hold of when you're injured or have a personal injury. So give them a call at
213-232-4848, 213-232-4848. Thank
and
you.
let them handle the stress for you while you recover at home. Thank you again. Bye-bye.
All right, welcome back to The Voice of Reason. Mark was finding the information on the black female brigadier general, one who just made brigadier general. So, Mark, what's the deets?
Well, she was nominated by President Trump, Colonel Lorna Malloch.
Oh, Malloch.
Malloch, to be Brigadier General of the Marine Corps. If approved, Malloch will be the first black female to serve in that capacity. Malloch is currently a Deputy Director of the Corps, headquarters in Washington, D.C. According to CNN, she's previously served in Okinawa, Japan as a commanding officer, where Malloch was in charge of 1,300 and civilian personnel. Women only make up 8% of the Marines, so this is pretty huge, actually.
Big pimping.
But in 2012, the Corps officials launched a diversity campaign and expected to see an increase in female ranks. So to me, with the Marines, it's really showing that women are, compatible and comparable to command in all corps. And so I take my hat off to the recognition of this Colonel Murlock. I keep saying Murlock. I think I'm stuck in one of the
one of Andy Griffith's old shows.
Yeah, Andy Griffith's old show, Moloch.
Right.
With Colonel Moloch's nominee for Brigadier General, and I take my hat off to that. Absolutely do.
And I'm going to say this, and I'm not taking anything away from her accomplishments or her nomination. My hope, and my sincere hope, is that this is not a political ploy, period. From what, Mark, you read, it seems like she is more than qualified for the position for which she's been nominated. And it sounds like she would make a fantastic Brigadier General. That's what it sounds like.
On that one, we've touched on this subject once or twice before, and it's the subject of the Supreme Court. We should have 8 or 9.
Right. Correct.
Or, what should we actually have in the Supreme Court? But the reason why I'm bringing this back up again is because there's a gun case. I believe it's in Washington. I'm looking it up right now real fast. Mm-hmm. And the Democrats have threatened the Supreme Court. And the statement that they made is really concerning to me about the threat, because it is a gun case. And it's in a sickening move, and I'm reading the article, a sickening move. Senate Democrats filed a brief in a gun case before the United States Supreme Court in which they openly threatened the court itself unless they got a favorable ruling. The Supreme Court is not well. This is quote, "The Supreme Court is not well, and the people know it. Perhaps the court can heal itself before the public demands it be restructured in order to reduce the influence of politics," says Senator Sheldon Whitehouse. Richard Blumenfeld, Mazio Harino, Hawaii, Richard Durbin.
Sheep.
Sound like I had a sick donkey in here.
I think I heard a baby crying, but I'll make sure that doesn't leak out again.
In a brief warning that the court to stay out of the case, challenging New York law restricting where gun owners can transport and use their permitted firearms. Democrats hope to expand the anti-gun law nationwide, which would thwart if the court were to take the case and rule against it. This is exactly what I spoke about in the former episodes in regarding to, do we want a liberal court? Do we want a conservative court? Or do we want an objective court? And as soon as you have Democrats or Republicans threatening or vetting for political gain and manipulation, we do not have an equitable court. We do not have a fair court. We don't even have a court of law. We have political gamesmanship. And when our senators or Congress people, mainly senators, have the major influence over the Supreme Court,
correct,
when they start making threats like this in their briefings, going to the court, before the court, this is trying to push undue political influence on the outcomes of the Supreme Court when they should be objective and equitable in all of their rulings and based and founded on constitutional law. Now, even though President Trump nominated and appointed 2 quote-unquote called conservative judges, they actually have sided with what they call the liberal judges on a couple of cases already.
These 2 occasions,
throwing everybody off keel. And that's because these judges are actually competent individuals looking at the law and precedent that has been set. And
so no one's buying the argument that Donald Trump has mental illness. Now the Democrats have to accuse the Supreme Court of being sick and not well.
Absolutely,
right.
Because as has been reported before, that the Democrats have always ruled or gotten a lot of their things done through the Supreme Court, changes in policy. And they've manipulated the Supreme Court. That's why it was a big push. And now their big push to stack the court, because they're seeing it as a conservative court, really is an alarming, attitude that the Democrats in the Senate have. And they have to be careful, because both sides have to be very careful.
All right,
we have a call real quick. Please state your name and where you're calling from. We only have about a minute and a half left.
Caller, you there?
Caller, you're on, and I think the caller just left.
think they
Sorry about
dropped.
that.
Okay. But in all fairness, though, I agree with you in this fashion. I think that the Supreme Court or the Supreme Justice, the nomination to the Supreme Court, has become way too politicized. It really has. I mean, it's even like how we talk about it when I introduce the
It's
show.
not just the nominations, it's the expectation of the judge has become politicized. Nominations have always been, which president is doing it. It's political in that respect because it's either a Republican president or a Democrat president. But the Supreme Court and the way they vet and the consent and approval in the Senate process has been so politicized. And I have to say it's mostly on the Democrat side, even though Mitch McConnell blocked Barack Obama's appointment until the next president came in. That was a political gamesmanship on Mitch
Absolutely
McConnell's side. Because the Republicans have always looked at, and fairly, this is why Sotomayor was, she was nominated and she was put in.
Right.
Okay, so they've always looked at it, and so it's become very disgusting. On that note, we're going to have to close out the show.
Yes.
And I want to thank everybody for joining in and allowing us to come into your houses and your cars, onto your computers, and watching a Southern Democrat and a West Coast Republican talk about the issues of the day and finding the common positions that we have. And we can argue without getting into a WWF mode and come to the reasonable conclusions of the issues of the day and the things that we are facing on a daily basis in the political arena. Ted, bring it on home.
Absolutely. And again, an echo mark. Yeah, thank you very much for tuning in to us. We hope you enjoy the show. Look forward to you tuning in and listening next week, where we will continue to regale you with issues of the day and our own respective views and opinions in a civil, respectable manner. And remember, ignorance prevails when rational minds sit back and do nothing. See you next week.
See you next week.
You're listening to The Voice of Reason with Mark Reed and Ted Durden, only on LA Talk Radio.
The power of dreams. I am the front man who drives. My power keeps me ahead in the front line. My reputation gets me on the front page. This is how I drive superiority. By being in the front row.